Hi, and welcome to episode 44 of the Do Something Indie Show. I really can't believe we've been around this long, and you might notice I have a little different attire on tonight. I have a really special guest tonight that I think you're going to enjoy this interview, and I am wearing my handy Clark Kent glasses because I feel like Superman today because it was really one of those tough days where I probably overscheduled myself, which I know some of you that know me no, that's not very. That's very common. But I was a half hour late today to this meeting, and it was like very important meeting, and I just couldn't get it going fast enough this morning to get there. But this guest was very patient with things, and I do appreciate that. And I want to tell just a little story about how I met this person, and with the very first time I heard this guy speak. The first thing he said, if you've never done anything stupid, raise your hand. And nobody raised their hand. I was like, wow, well, that's a pretty good way to say, hey, we're all human. And the other time I was going to meet him is when I was getting into this political mess. And just as a disclaimer tonight, this is Do Something Indie. This is not really a political show. I mean, as it could be. But it is about somebody who's doing something in not only Indianapolis area, but Indiana. So that's how it fits on this show because I could put it on the political show very easily. But I remember when I got into politics a little bit, I was just a young, naive pup, wet behind the ears, and trying to figure this stuff out. And there's sort of a thing in politics that if you talk to so and so, or if you don't talk to so and so, or if it could be career ending, and if you're getting to politics, you will feel that pressure. So I got into politics. So they had this event in November with folks that came, and I remember this person had a little trouble going on in the media, and some other people were saying some accusations, and he had some issues. And I remember him standing over there by himself and really nobody talking to him, sort of like the cold shoulder. And at the time, I'm like, man, I don't know if I should go talk to this guy or not talk to this guy. What's the deal? I don't want to screw this up before I even get started. So I didn't talk to him. And that's something that I regret. And it's something that I don't do now. It's something that I learned from that you know what? I will talk to everyone. I don't care what I'll talk to you. I want to talk to you. I want to find out what you're about. So that was some of the things I learned early on in politics. But tonight's interview, I'm just very excited. And again, I apologize for being a half hour late. I mean, oh my gosh, I still feel bad about it. But I think you're going to enjoy this interview. It is, and the guy is Curtis Hill, the Attorney General. So let's get to that, and we're going to talk about, what his job is, what he's done, and some of the good things he's done. So let's look at this, and then I'll come back on and we'll talk a little bit more about this. But let's enjoy this interview. Hi, this is John Schmitz, and I'm down here at the State House, and I have yet another special guest for the show here. This is, I don't think it really needs an introduction, but this is Curtis Hill, and he has been so gracious to grant me an interview today to let you know a little bit about what the Attorney General's about and what he's done. So Curtis, go ahead and give me a little background of where you're from and all that good stuff.
Sure, John. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Well, I'm originally from Elkhart, Indiana. I was born and raised there, the youngest of 5 children, and began my legal career in Elkhart as a young private lawyer and also a deputy prosecuting attorney. I then moved on to run for elected office as the elected prosecuting attorney and won in 2002, and went on to serve 4.5 terms as prosecuting attorney. 4 terms as prosecuting attorney. And then ran for Attorney General in 2016. And I've served as the Attorney General now. I'm in my 4th year, and very proud of the accomplishments that we've made here.
Yeah, and I just want to throw this out here for our viewers, but this man right here has gotten the most votes in any election ever in Indiana. Is that correct?
That is correct.
That is correct.
In 2016, we had 1.64 million votes, and that was the highest vote total of any contested election in the state of Indiana ever for any races. And It was a good accomplishment for us, but I think it was a testament to the messaging that we had around the state and the level of support and the desire for people in this state to move beyond ordinary politics. It was the same year that Donald Trump won handily in Indiana, and so I'm very pleased that we had that particular mark.
Yeah, so tell our viewers what the Attorney General's job entails. What would be a day in Curtis Hill's life like?
Well, there's no standard day as Attorney General. The Attorney General is basically the lawyer for the state. So we handle any interest where it's captured in the state of Indiana. If the state of Indiana has been sued, our office represents the state. If the state of Indiana needs to initiate legal action against someone, we represent the state. Our primary function is to defend the Constitution, both the United States Constitution and the Indiana Constitution, which means we work for the people. We don't work for anyone else. We work for and on behalf of the people. So our office is comprised of somewhere between 350 and 400 individuals, about 150 lawyers, and we have a multitude of divisions. We have an advisory division, we have a consumer protection division, we have a Solicitor General's division. All of these areas have particular interests that help facilitate our ability to preserve and defend the Constitution.
Yeah, so let's see, what would be one of your most highlighted cases that you had in your 4 years that sticks out in your mind?
Well, we've had several. We've had quite a run in the consumer protection area. We had Equifax is a credit reporting program that was involved in the largest data breach in the history of the country. 140 million Americans were affected by that. 3.9 million Hoosiers were affected by that. So that was half of our state. And as a result, there was a large lawsuit that was filed multi-state. Indiana, we chose to file our own lawsuit. And as a result of that, we negotiated a settlement of $19 million, which was the largest settlement that was paid out by Equifax across the country. And we're going to put that money to work back to consumers who've been harmed. So that was a major consumer case. One of the cases that and case might not be the right word, one of the situations that I'm most pleased about my office's response was upon the discovery of 2,411 fetal remains in the state of Illinois, aborted babies that had been inappropriately transported by their abortionist. And we found this out last September, just like everyone else did in the news, and had a pretty good inkling that those babies had come from Indiana. So we got involved in the case right away. We contacted the Illinois Attorney General. I expressed my interest in pursuing the case. We coordinated with officials in Illinois and confirmed and secured the babies as being from Indiana, and we brought them back. And on February 12th of this year, we held a ceremony in a cemetery in northern Indiana where we memorialized the 2,411 remains so that they would remain together as a unit and remind us of the preciousness of life and what we're up against in forces that don't recognize the value of life in this country.
Yeah, and that was one of the cases. I will follow all of your cases. I mean, that consumer one, I should have followed that because it sounded like we got a little money back, but that was the one in my mind that sticks out because that was just like, that's just the right thing to do.
Well, it is and was. I mean, one of the interesting things about the discovery, even people who were pro-choice were aghast at the discard of these entities. And so it sort of strengthened our argument, those of us who believe in the sanctity of life, it strengthened our argument that these are human beings. These are not blobs, these are not cells and clusters. These are human beings that need to be treated with respect and dignity. And seeing how they were treated really illuminated that need. And so I think it's provided a boost to the pro-life movement of recognizing the human quality of an unborn fetus.
Now, is there now a law that requires, or is there a law that's trying to be made that requires the proper burial or ceremony for fetal remains, or is that still, I don't,
Yes,
where's that at?
yes, there is. At the time that the remains were transported some 20 years ago, there was not.
Right.
But since that time, the state legislature had enacted legislation that would require facilities to either bury or cremate fetal remains. And that case had gone through Supreme Court review, and just in May of 2019, that case had been resolved favorably for the state of Indiana. Now, what's going on further is our legislature just recently, after the Klopfer discovery, enacted legislation to not just require burial and cremation, but to provide some follow-up to make sure that it's being done. Because any law is only as good as someone's willing to follow it, or the state enforcement of it.
Yeah, and that's just great. You know, like I said, that's what I feel like Indiana is about. It's about doing the right thing, and I think you've done a very good job representing our state in these matters.
Thank you very much.
You know, and just managing 150 lawyers you should have a star by your name just for that.
Well, it
Because
sounds like the start of a lawyer joke.
okay, I'll give you that.
Well, and these are very talented people. Sometimes folks think that, well, they work for government, but it takes a special breed to use your talent to work in the service of others. And so we've had lawyers here in the AG's office that have spent their careers here 30, 40 years. We've had some that come in as youngsters, get a couple years experience and move on, and they're in various walks of life. But throughout our entire office, we've got some very high quality lawyers. Our Solicitor General is one of the most well respected in the country. And so it helps my job to have solid people that I can rely on. I can't review every particular case individually. Some people think, well, you're the Attorney General, so you're on all of these cases, and we are officially on all the cases, but I have a great deal of resource and assistance in helping to make recommendations on where we
Yeah, and you got to be able to count on those folks for sure. And you know, you're not coming back for election, so let's talk about that a little bit, about maybe the politics involved in this. I mean, the lawyers and laws, right?
Right.
It really, politics gets wedged in there, though, in a way. And for our viewers, your version of how the politics worked in your situation.
Well, it's an elected position. It's an interesting position because we deal with the law, we deal with the Constitution, and it's much like my role as prosecuting attorney. It's prosecuting attorney is an elected position, and yet our primary focus is to do what's right. And doing what's right is not always doing what's political. And what I have found in the State House, and I don't think it's much of a secret, this place, the State House kind of runs its own game. And some people fit in, some people don't fit in. I'm very proud to say that I don't fit in to State House politic that suggests that you go a particular way. As I said, I work on behalf of the Constitution and the people, and there are those in this building that run afoul of that. That's not the way that they roll. So I think that we have seen a concerted effort to minimize the AG's office. There have been things that have been done towards this office that had not been done with my predecessors in terms of access to resources and things of that nature. And it's unfortunate because I think I think Indiana is a fantastic state, a fantastic model. The people's support for this office and for me have been off the charts. And it was a great opportunity for those in state government to really push the AG's office in terms of what it could do. I certainly did it myself. I think we've placed the office on the map. Instead of merely the law firm for the state, we've been out there driving agenda. We've been out there. We're public safety vehicles, so we've worked with the 10-Point Coalition to try to reduce violent crime and violent death by gunfire here in the city of Indianapolis. We took that program and through grant affiliations with the Indiana Drug Enforcement Agency, we've got a 10-point coalition that we started at Gary. We have a 10-point coalition that we started in Fort Wayne. The one in Fort Wayne is outstandingly successful. We're pleased about that. Through our engagement in what's going on in the court system and in the world of drugs, we determined that there wasn't a sufficient drug treatment program in the various counties, although the counties were filling up with more and more people that weren't going to the DOC because of changes in the statute from several years ago. As a result of that, we found a program, the Jail Chemical Addiction Program. This program was operating in Dearborn County and in Boone County very successfully. We studied it, measured it, and determined that we could replicate that program. Since that time, we have been directly responsible, the AG's office has been directly responsible in identifying and assisting multiple counties in having their own jail chemical addiction program. These are things that are not necessarily within the statutory framework of what the AG's office does, but it's the opportunity that we've taken to recognize that there are things that need to be done, others aren't doing them, and therefore we step in and fill that void, working with our resources, working with local community resources. And we're very pleased about that. Small things that you can do in a position of leadership. Just last evening, I joined yourself.
Yeah, that's right. I feel like I'm stalking you.
Yeah, well, I joined you and a group of others feeding hungry people at the city county building. There's a group of people who do that every day.
Every day.
7 days a week, 365 days a year. But it helps when you have frontline profile officials that are there supporting, so then other people understand this is something that we may want to get involved in. And so I think it's been a great opportunity to use our pulpit in that fashion as well.
So yeah, and that's great. And I think sometimes those voids that you're talking about come from our representatives and our legislatures that are supposed to be doing a job. And
Right.
I know that you had written a letter about a special session because
Right.
the governor decided he's going to be king. That's just the fastest way to say that. And that's one of the things that I would expect happening. But it's almost like, hey, we want to do our thing. We don't want anybody looking over our shoulder. To me, you can't have enough eyes and enough help and enough people telling you or helping you. The competition is good for us. It seems like we got a little isolation on that.
Well, in the era that we're in now, I see a real concern with where our constitutional process is headed. The disaster of a public health crisis has created opportunity for various leaders, whether they're governors, mayors, to institute executive fiat, to take control beyond the measures of the constitutional authority. Now, everyone recognizes a limited ability to do that. In certain disasters, we need to have a certain amount of nimbleness to be able to operate outside the red tape that is the typical bureaucracy. So if you look at our disaster emergency statute, it gives the governor authority to take certain actions for a 30-day period, which is renewable, but it doesn't address what happens in an ongoing, lingering situation like we're in. And one of the other things that the statute suggests, it says that the legislature can stop the emergency action.
They don't seem very willing to do that.
Well, they have to be in session to do it.
Yeah,
And so the bugaboo now is that they're not in session and only the governor can call them into session. So it becomes a who gets to make the call type of aspect. And I've been somewhat critical as late, recognizing that in the beginning of the process, it certainly was reasonable for the governor to take emergency action, put out some information. We don't have data. We don't know what's going on. Shut down for 2 weeks, fine. Do whatever you have to do. And I think most Americans and Hoosiers are okay with that. But it's been 6 months.
Yeah.
And we are no longer in an emergency situation. We have a lot of data. We understand that this is a process that's going to take a long time. And that being said, it seems odd to me that we are willing to have fully 1/3 of our constitutional government sitting on the sidelines, not fully engaged in identifying legislative solutions
Yes.
that are necessary. We've got schools that are going up and down. You've got a situation right now where Indiana University, I'm very concerned about this, Indiana University is quarantining entire fraternities and sororities and
Yeah.
other areas and impacting young Hoosiers who are there to get an education who aren't even sick. It's one thing to quarantine someone who is determined to be sick and contagious. That's an issue. But it starts to cross the line of how are we handling freedoms of other people.
And it would be nice to have a guideline set.
Well, it would
Wouldn't it?
be nice to have a guideline set that we can rely on and not just fire from the hip
As the wind blows.
as the wind blows.
Yeah.
So that's what, that's why we wrote the letter a few weeks ago to do what we could to get us back on the track of a constitutional process. It doesn't mean that the legislature has all the answers, but the legislative branch, as you know, John, is the closest to the people. And that's who's being left out of this process, the people.
Oh, yeah. Mhm. Yep. Curtis, I appreciate your time. This has been great. I know my people are going to love to watch this
Super.
and to get that together. So
Thank you, buddy.
I appreciate it. Well, there you go, folks. This is from the State House, and this is the man right here. And I know you're going to see him again somewhere. And I can't wait because this guy, he knows his stuff, just as you just heard.
Okay, I guess I got a little excited there because I just noticed my microphone wasn't on. So I have to do that all again. But that's all right. I'll do it. So I'll edit this and for the YouTube, so you won't have to endure my lack of technical skills or an engineer or this one-man band. But what I was saying earlier when you couldn't hear it, and if you could read lips, then you're good to go. But what I was impressed with Curtis Hill, when we got done with our conversation, he said to me, he said, I thought this was going to be about your politics. And to me, that spoke volumes because that is what a servant leader is supposed to be like. He's supposed to be somebody, he or she is supposed to be somebody who's concerned with others. And Curtis is concerned with others. Last night, he came down to the city county building with refuge plates, and we served our friends on the street. He was serving the food. And I've been begging our city officials or state officials or anybody to come out and actually serve to see what's going on because our homeless population is growing and it is growing exponentially and it's going to be a big problem. And if we don't do something about it, it is going to hit us like a tidal wave, and it's really, really going to be a problem because about a third of our population, unfortunately, in Marion County is one emergency away from being homeless. And we don't have the system set up to do this. It just is amazing how lacking the system is to be able to handle the volume of homelessness that we're experiencing. So I'm just sort of glad to have this. As I say, I was so excited I forgot to push my microphone on, but at least I realized it before the show was over. But hey, get out in your neighborhood and do something. I mean, it's up to us to do this. We cannot rely on our politicians all the time to do these things. So if you have an initiative or something you want to get done, hey, let me know. I'll help you do it because that's what we're all about here at Do Something Indy. So I appreciate you tuning in. Tell your friends, share Do Something Indy, and thanks for watching. Now, let's do the ending, and you had words before the ending, so here you go.